Hi, and welcome to the lecture about graphics and effects. This is chapter 9 in the Zettel book. Let's get going. All right. So we have the aspect ratio to the picture screen, right? And the aspect ratio for a standard definition television, that's a tube TV set, is 4:3, and these are measured in units. So it could be measured in inches, could be measured in centimeters. The standard definition, or excuse me, the aspect ratio for high definition television is 16:9. Now, when we're talking about graphics and effects, we also need to be aware of the essential area. The essential area is the area within the outermost 10% of the screen. What that means is this is the safe viewing area. It's about 90% of the screen, right? Here's the essential area. So if this was your screen, you want to keep all your graphics and effects in this part. If this is your screen here, your aspect ratio here, you want to keep all your graphics in this area. And then keep in mind that there are still a lot of viewers out there that have a 4:3 tube kind of aspect ratio in their receivers and haven't switched over to HD TV. So when you're building your effects, you may have to build your effects so that they look well on the HD TV aspect ratio, but they can also translate to a smaller 4:3 screen. And I'll show an example of an over-the-shoulder shot that is doing exactly that. All right. So we talk about different effects. One of them is the superimposition, or the super, which is a simultaneous overlay of two pictures, similar to a double exposure in film. On the video switcher, all we have to do is pick one source in program and another source in the preview bus, and then use the fader bar and put the fader bar in the middle. Halfway between the two video sources, and we get this superimposition. We get the super. All right. Now on to that was one of the very, very first basic effects that they could do in video switchers. And then they got into key effects. And basically the key cuts a hole in the base picture. All right. So in this case, this is your base picture. All right. The sunrise is the base picture. And then we cut in these letters, the text here is cut in. And so that is the key right there. And in this particular one, we've even filled the key with some other sort of graphic here. It looks like it's green, so it may be some plant life or something like that. And this is an effect where we layer titles and images together in this picture right here of the weathercaster. This is a really layered graphic effect, right? Because we have the base picture of the map, and we've got the weathercaster cut into, keyed onto this, but we also got some other layering going on here too, like the different cities, and we've got this crawl that's happening too. So let's get into exactly building some of these kinds of things. Now, I said the super was one of the first effects, right? And so then one of the first key effects was a luminance key. They called it a normal key, distinguishing it from other kinds of keys like chroma keys. But it's really based on light for keying, using different shade, whether light or darkness, right? And that is contrast. So here's your base picture. Right, and then here is your key source, the letters that are cut into that. So in the early days of television, this was kind of what they had, until they came up with color TV, right? And then they could use things like chroma key. Remember, luminance is light, chroma is color. Right. And so you have a base picture here. We have the street scene that's happening. And then our key source are our two actors in the studio in front of a colored background. And then we have this layered composite image where we've keyed them, cut them into it, and disposed of all of this chroma here, all of this certain color. Now, in the early days of television, color television, they used chroma key blue, and that was because it was thought to be compatible with most skin tones, and so that you could also use that set if you weren't going to be using it as a key source, you could use the set in total as, you know, for a picture source. So in some places, people were using the chroma key blue background just normal as it was, and then later on they would key it for another effect. Now, it turns out that a lot of people have blue eyes. So when you get up to a close-up of somebody, if you're using that for a key effect, that you can get some crazy things happening. And so that's why that green screen is now used. That weird color of green is used for our key source. And then we have the matte key, which is where we're using 3 different sources. And that was in that first panel that I showed you with the nature slide. That was a matte key. So we have a base picture. The key source is right here. And then we've decided to fill in the key source since we're using kind of a luminance key. Well, that's easy to fill. So we filled it with this kind of grainy kind of stuff. And since this is done in a computer and the computers are basically kind of a word processing program, we can do kind of neat things with the text too. And so in this kind of case, we've got a drop edge, and that's just a, you know, text writing effect. And then as things went on, we came up with a problem where maybe we wanted to key something over our base picture, and our key source had color, right? And we wanted to maintain the color in our key source. So our next key is a linear key. And it uses 2 sources and a grayscale instead of color for filling. Remember, we've got our color bars that we use in our productions. This color bar actually has 2 levels of grayscale in here too. So at some point, the engineer sets a level of grayscale to use for these pictures. So here's our fill picture, and notice our fill picture, the radio controlled airplane has a green propeller. So if we use chroma key, we'd be out of luck for that. So we're using this for the fill. We're using the moon for our base picture, and we use the grayscale to cut out our fill picture and then fill it in here. So we filled in with this picture and using the grayscale to cut out of here instead of using chroma key, something like that. Now, on our switcher, this is a schematic of the flow, of the electronic flow of our key, okay? We have the program preview bus on the switcher, and normally that just goes to the transition area where we do cuts or wipes or dissolves, and then that goes out to, you know, on air to our recorders. Now, above the program preview bus, we have the key bus. And if we combine them in the keyer, we can just go right to the transition bus right here and out. But then we can also take the keyer, we can take these sources here, go through the keyer and go through another bus. This is the ME, and this is the multi-layer effects bus, okay? Which is kind of what happens when you do these multi-effects where you have the weathercasters standing in front of the map, but the map has graphics on it, those kinds of things. So that might go through an ME effects, right? And then goes through the transition area. Then we get to this. What is this? This is the downstream key. All right. And so in our downstream key, what we're going to be doing is after the video switcher, all the electronics of the video switcher, we're going to add another key effect, and this might be the crawl at the bottom of the picture, right? And then all of this goes to the master black area, because if we want to go to black, you know, fade to black, that's why we use the master black area on our switcher. And we can bring all of our effects down into black at the same time, rather than using fade to black in the transition area. Now, when you're looking at the switcher, this is all part of the switcher, right? All of this is just part of the switcher. And but electronically, we have this area, and then the downstream key is after all of the transition and key and program and preview bus, and the master black is even after the downstream key goes to on air. What does this all look like? Okay, so here are a couple of pictures. This is a picture that's being used in a news report, and they're using the downstream key right here, so they can change pictures and go to the anchors and things like that, and this will always be there, right? And then when they cut to something else, then they can still have all of this kind of, sometimes they call it a bug. They have all this information bug, so it has the time and temperature and also the logo in here. So in the parts of this image, we've got, let's see, we've got the base picture as the map. We've got the key source as the person, you know, our weathercaster. But then we've also got something going on here where we've got a layer of matte key in here from the weather map, you know, all the temperature. And then down here is a downstream key where we've got a crawl going on. All right, we've got all of the stock exchange figures going on there. So that's your downstream key. So our key effects can get quite complicated in their layering. We've got our base picture right here, the weather or the world map. Then we've got our anchor right here in the chroma key area, and we're using our linear key to chroma key the anchor over the picture, and this is our you know, linear key right here, right? The composite picture. And then to add to this, we're going to add a couple of levels of downstream key. So we've got a crawl going here on the downstream key, and then we've also, you know, that's what this is right here. And then we've also got our like little bug that has, you know, our logo or something like that in an additional downstream key. So this one has 2 levels of downstream key in it. So we had superimpositions, we've got key effects. Now we also have wipes, right? And it's a pretty simple kind of effect where we transition from one picture to the next gradually. Sometimes it's actually pretty quick. And it's one picture is perceived to wipe the other one off the screen, right? And this takes place in the ME area of the video switcher. And so those transitions take place there, even though that on our switcher, it looks like it's happening in the transition area. It's actually, that transition area is linked to the ME area of our switcher. And then we also have a layer of graphics and effects that get quite complicated now. And because we've added computers to the mix, you know, we have for some time, we have digital video effects, or DVE. So sometimes on video switchers, you'll see an ME area, but you'll also see a DVE area where they've added digital effects where they can roll in pictures, and you have cubes and all sorts of things tumbling around, pictures tumbling around in there. And it's for greater manipulation of, and that happens in the digital environment. Now, when we're looking at the screen, when we're looking at picture, here are the names of the different kinds of effects that were used that are really common in television news production. We have the lower third, right? And that's because that happens in the lower third of the picture. And so we use that a lot for keying in names and things like that. We have the OTS shot, and that's the over the shoulder shot. And notice I said, well, we're going to have different aspect ratios. This is a 16:9 aspect ratio, but this OTS shot here, this OTS graphic, is actually built for the 4:3 aspect ratio to be compatible with a 4:3 aspect ratio. So that's what you got to take into account when you're building some of your effects. And then here's the weathercaster that's basically on a chroma key effect right there. Now, on our studio, in our studio at De Anza, we are using the Compix um, Gen CG. Okay, that's just the name of it. And this is what it looks like on this screen, right? This is where you might start. Here is where we actually build the pages. Then when you build them, they end up as thumbnails over here, and you can manage them here, right? If you want to start out with some fancy background or something like that, you can pick them from the style catalog. Since our graphics are not static, okay, so some of them crawl, some of them roll, some of them might wipe in or dissolve out or something like that. That's where this attributes control happens. And then of course here's how we play them back on the screen. I'll go through each one of these individually here. Here's the page list. This is where we have the thumbnails, right? That's on the left side of the screen, right? And there are some things going on here too. You can bring them in. So this one has a wipe in, and this one also has a wipe out, or we can dissolve in or out. We can do those kinds of things. So inside the CG itself, we have transitions. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to build them in, then you need to coordinate that with the technical director. Sometimes the technical director will do a fancy transition into, you know, the CG, and then within the CG, if you're going to go to different thumbnails or different pages that you've built, then you can use the transitions to transition between different pages. And that's how that's really useful. Also, there's modes for running graphics. There's a still mode. Here's the roll mode. So when we say roll credits, that's generally something where we go from bottom to top. It's a vertical kind of roll. And that's more common in English because we read kind of that way. There's also a crawl mode that goes on the bottom of the screen and crawls across, right? There's a typing mode. You can use that as a transition. And then this is the attributes control. And here are the different thumbnails here that you can click on to do certain kinds of things. You can change the text, right? You can affect its color. You can also do set up the clock here and then set the runtime for it. So this is where you can build that particular page and really get into the graphics of that page right there. Here is the output control, and that's usually at the bottom of the Compix CG right there. Just remember that it works just like Program and Preview does in your monitors there in the monitor stack. Okay, this is preview, this is program. So this is what's going to be playing out the CG, right? And this is what's coming up. And then these are the kind of transition controls that you've got set up for them. And if you just want to go from next to next to next, you can just hit play, and play. Or you can, if you want to quickly go, like we've got 15 slides here. Here's 1 to 15. If you need to get quickly to slide 8, you can use the slider bar here and slide to 15 to 8 and get there really quickly. And then this is the style catalog. It's to the right of the edit window, the big window in the CG. And this is where you can pick out all sorts of different kinds of backgrounds and pictures to go with it. And this is the edit window where all of that takes place. So you build your graphic, your page graphic right there. So on our CG, if you want to load a picture, right, then you go up to insert. That's right here in the menu bar. You go up to insert, and even though this says it looks like we're picking image, you want to insert an image, it's best if you insert it as a background, because if you insert it as background, you can use it as the background for your layered effect, for your your multi-layered effect, or you can use it as they say full. And so if it's in there as an image, you can only use it as an image. You can't use it as a background effect. So it's more useful to you if you use it, if you load it as a background. Okay. And then once you said that you're going to load it as a background, you go find it on your computer, right? You go navigate on your computer where it is. You decide, okay, we think we're going to, we opened up a folder, we opened up a directory right here, and we're choosing, I guess we chose this picture, and there it goes. Actually, we chose the cat, and now we're choosing the dog, and we can now build those graphics. And even though we're using those pictures as a full effect, right? We could, if we wanted to, build a graphic where we had the name of the dog here and the name of the cat down here, that kind of thing, right? In this particular case, I don't think we're doing that. We're just using the picture full. All right. And that's a basic run through of graphics and effects. Be sure to look at chapter 9, read that, and then you can take the quiz.